2 seconds. Tying up. Where's Gary gone? Bathroom? Okay, kia ora, welcome back everybody. Thank you. We're all set to go. We'll go straight to Aileen's Chief Executive report.
So I thought we'll just deal with financials first, so Hayden can go away and get some work done. I just wanted to front foot the waste matter, and you see a comment in there that we are down on waste revenue. So we've actually got some work going on in the finance team, just having a look at that revenue and doing some reconciliation work. So while we're flagging it, we're not really in a position to provide anything other than speculation today. So I'd suggest we defer that conversation to a subsequent meeting when we're better informed with some facts and analysis around this. But otherwise, I'll hand over to Hayden.
For your worship, basically at the moment we are favourable against annual plan, which is good. There's still, it's still really early days, but we're in the process of doing we've completed an October reforecast, which basically told us that we were in line with annual plan. We're going to do a half-yearly reforecast, which will give us a far better idea of where we're kind of sitting. And a big part of that is looking at that solid waste revenue.
Thank you, Hayden. So as far as the rest of the report is concerned, you happy to take that as read, or did you want to address?
I'll address.
You'll address, okay.
Just the financials.
So just the financials. Any questions of Hayden while we're on that part of it? Oh, shall we let him get back to work? Peter, did you have something?
Just a quick one. On page 236, building control expenses are favourable, and the thing there is upskilling of in-house staff, which is downskilling of, not downskilling, a reduced use of contractors. And I'm just interested to know what that looks like, how we've achieved that, and how easy and how difficult, and is this going to be an increasing factor? Do you want to answer that, Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I'm happy to answer that. It's a mix of both some hard work and some good luck. So, well, maybe not good luck, but we took the opportunity 2 years ago with the COVID relief education funding to put 4 local people through cadetships. So we've now got 4. They graduated at the end of last year. So we've got 4 new building control officers in the team that we've helped train. So for the first time, we don't have vacancies in that team. But the second side of that, which is a little bit of luck, but we've seen a real downturn in consent applications across I was at a meeting yesterday across the Waikato. I think we're about 20 to 30% down in applications. So we will still use contractors from time to time in the peaks. So where there is something that we can't deal with that peak in-house and we want to meet our 20-day measure, we may put that out to contractors, but right now it's looking like we can probably deal with most of that in-house.
Thank you. Any further questions of Hayden? Okay. We're happy to let Hayden go. You're free.
Hayden has to rush off and read the latest email on the Three Waters legislation. Okay, so just to note, Lagoimas continue at quite a high rate. This is quite a large risk area for council, and we've got a couple of things wrong over the last 12 months because of the pressure of cyclones and various work pressures. So we've actually increased the resourcing into this area. So we've got another FTE now in there processing this because the demands have become so great and the risk is quite high too. So just noting that. Just in terms of the recovery plan, there was that announcement of 1.3 million for the Thornton Bay slip. And I think I described the 3-stage process that we went through to secure that funding. So there's the funding agreements arrived today, and the team are now having operational meeting, planning with getting on with that project. There's a note there about championing the Coromandel Roads strategic response to the cyclone being our big opportunity at the moment, and Steve in town and I are planning to come around the community boards over the next cycle and just talk to each of them about the scale of the problem and the opportunity in front of us, and also the importance of understanding what's going on with government in both the cyclone recovery area and also in the RLTP, and just keeping our eye on the ball in terms of what this government is doing around road funding. And I think we've got probably 3 bites at this, and there's always another bite in another 12 months and then another 12 months after that, given the scale of the challenge we have with our roads. It's one of these challenges I don't think we can ever let go of until we actually get some resilience budget into the roads. Resource management reforms. I was on a Zoom about 2 days ago being consulted on the fast track process. It's going to be quite an interesting process. It's going to be similar to the previous processes under the post-COVID legislation, and we're familiar with it, having had the Sugarloaf, and I think Korpu went through it as well. The Sugarloaf one is interesting, and that's reported later on in the report. But with Sugarloaf, what happened was it went on judicial review, so there's no appeal, substantive appeal to the Environment Court permitted in the process, but there's always the risk of judicial review. And so when it did go to court, what we found was the government had put in place a panel to make the decision, but there was actually no consent authority standing behind the decision. So the companies ended up carrying the costs that a council would otherwise have carried because it was on that fast track process. So while you look at it and you go, that's great, that's awesome, when it does get into that judicial review space, the costs do land back in a quite an unintended way, in my view. So I've passed on the Sugarloaf learnings into that process, and we'll see what happens. And in particular, if they're looking to increase the number of proposals going through that consenting process, then you can imagine there could be more and more judicial reviews and attacks on the process, which will then end up either landing back, or the government will have to up resource, which is counter to the view that they're going to downsize the public sector. So there's some challenges in that legislation, probably unintended consequences. So Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, I'm thinking I'll transfer that over to the Mayor's report in future, because it is the Mayor's Task Force. But that's going really well, and great having those cadet positions filled, mostly, if not all funded externally. So that's pretty neat, and really great to have cadets coming into local government and hopefully paving a way with paving a career through local government.
Driving down today, I heard the local government minister talking about amalgamation and all these things that are meant to be going on. Has there been any discussion on that?
None.
He's saying he's expecting councils to get together and amalgamate and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what?
Aggregate, maybe?
I think
that'll be 3 waters.
He's saying
it'll
that,
be
for example,
3 waters.
they were talking about West Coast wanting to amalgamate with Christchurch, but you know, that's going to happen. But he's saying really all around the country people should be amalgamating. And well, I just thought I'd mention that because he was being sort of cross-examined on it. And I'm going like,
Gary, my understanding is that that's part of that discussion about councils forming CCOs with neighbouring councils, specifically on 3 waters. If the minister was starting to talk about council amalgamation, he would then have opened up a whole new massive can
I think what you said was probably correct. That's what it was about, but it sort of struck me like, wow.
Yeah, so just on the 3 waters, an email has just 20 minutes ago come through from DIA saying that there's going to be legislation in place by the 23rd of February that will repeal the previous legislation and put in some transitional protections for long-term plans, where we've now included the 3 waters back into it. And there's a bunch of options in there around LTPs. They're then saying framework and transitional arrangements will be enacted mid-2024, And then by December 2024, they're going to introduce the new legislation to be enacted by mid-25. And that, I'm sure that's what the minister was discussing on the radio. Yeah. So
and that, sorry, just to interrupt, that circles back to those discussions that we've been having regional level with the local mayors and iwi chairs about what that would look like, and if we were to partner up on Three Waters, who would we sit down with? Quite challenging. So I welcome any thoughts that any of you as councillors have about what that would look like, because there are not going to be any easy answers to that. And so much of that drive, that push is going to be potentially focused around the Waikato catchment area. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, we don't feel part of that Waikato River catchment area in the same way that other councils do in the same district. And there's going to be some resistance to us being shunted in that direction. So lots of work to do in that space.
Thanks, Len. Hey, I don't feel any affiliation with Tauranga or Auckland, so we're sort of out on a limb by ourselves, but we do have the option at the end of the day to do it by ourselves as long as we present a plan that's agreeable.
I wouldn't guarantee that, Councillor Morrissey, and I think this is why we're all waiting and watching with the guidance that comes through and the legislation that comes through from the government, because they might say to us, listen guys, this is how you're going to do it. And it comes back to what Councillor Gottlieb was just saying. We might get some direction from the government that we will expect you to form regional partnerships, because the government's been quite clear they don't have any appetite for dealing with 67 little councils, especially when it comes to putting funding mechanisms in place. So we might not have that option, but at this stage we just don't know.
No, I know we don't know. I was listening to the release the other day, and it certainly seemed to me that they were requiring from each council a plan as to how they were going to manage their water and water infrastructure, and it didn't actually sound like it was going to be mandatory to be part of the CCO if you could present a suitable plan that was agreed that they would agree to. But
possibly, none of us have the answers.
No, okay.
But possibly.
Yep.
So just through the chair and directed at you, I mean, now that we're getting more information that is coming through, which really does have a direct link back into our LTP, does that put any onus back on us to have to revisit some of those things now to look at that?
I think we read the tea leaves right, and I think we got it right. And that what the legislation is doing is providing some safety nets to the councils that didn't get it right. Our Three Waters is solidly in our plan, so I think for the purposes of this LTP, we're good.
So apart from the one aspect of revenue directly from water through the metering of the place, we haven't built anything in for that, have we?
For metering?
Yeah, well, for the, now that we've got meters in at most of the locations around the place, we could charge out for water.
Yes, we could charge by volume.
I can say what he went on like a broken record about with water meters, that'll solve the problem, water meters, he kept saying that.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. We already have a water by meter charging system across the district. Wherever meters are available, we do have a metered rate. So as meters are introduced into the district, that charge will also be extended accordingly. It's not a new concept to the district. We're already doing it.
So we're not charging at the moment, are we?
We are charging for the Whitianga will be from after the next LTP. That's what we said in the previous LTP.
Sorry, when?
From after the next LTP.
Okay.
Next one. Yeah.
And Whangamatara as well?
Yes. Okay. As meters get installed and come online, we will start charging.
Ironically, the meters were paid for by better off funding from the previous. I just want to touch Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but because these are relevant, just touch on Councillor Grant's question, and I think it's a really good one about where we sit in our LTP. There was an article yesterday in Inside Government New Zealand about Hamilton's position, and they had taken a position where they had basically removed Three Waters from their LTP and forecast their rates rises based on Three Waters not being in there. They've now, the position they're in now is they've had to put all that back in, so revenue and costs, and it's taken their forecast rates from, I think, around 14% up to 25.5%. So I think our council and our team have got it right, and as Aileen said, read the tea leaves right. We've got it right. It was a tough call to make because there was so much uncertainty, but I think the team's done a good job at crystal ball gazing and landed us in a good place.
Okay, so I have commented both of our big projects are now pretty much on track. Kupu's all gone green again. There was some amber for a little while, but it's gone back to green. And the appeal came out of the High Court for Te Ariki Tahi Sugarloaf Wharf, and the company will advise council in due course about what actions are next. We do have a new project manager on board in the form of John Galbraith, who's already diving into it and finding options for us. So it's reasonably good news there. I've provided the summer overview, which is the same text that you will have received by the councillor weekly update, just to get this sort of out into the open. In terms of staff, our second shift have now just about completed leave. So this organisation is interesting in that when Christmas hits, a group of staff wind up, not wind down. And we had something like 20 staff basically looking after the peak period daily through the summer. And then when they come back, another group goes off and has leave. Sorry. When they finish, they go off and have leave, and the other group comes back. So I think we're just about all back on deck now, which is, great. Just in terms of the RFSs, the one thing that jumped out at me was the building department. So while we might have had a quiet period, it does look like there's some signals there that we're going to have an uptick. So no doubt Brian will be on top of that, getting organised for when that actually translates to increased building consent applications. I've also thrown in here a comment about a KPI that I have. So council has given me a KPI to have a look at our contracting versus in-house delivery of our services. And council put 100k against it, but we omitted to work out where that was coming from. So felt we needed to put a resolution on the books that dealt to that. Whether you want to do that to press ahead with that this financial year, well, my suggestion would be to split it 50 and 50 over this year and next, and let that KPI slide a little bit, which will also give me time to sort out the leadership and the operations team, which currently we have Glenn standing in what's effectively a vacant position. And happy to answer any questions.
Martin and, sorry, John, Martin, John.
Oh, we'll let Martin go.
Martin and John, please.
Yeah, thanks. And then just going back up to the first page, second page that has the resource management reforms on there. So the fast track consenting, is that only a process that's available for either central or local governments project?
I'm not nobody has seen the details of the bill yet, but my understanding is it's for projects that are of regional or national significance. So not necessarily about who the applicant is, but the scale of the project. And there's been talk about it being things like aquaculture and big energy type projects.
So presumably councils would still have the ability to not fast track a project if there was concern around the community about how it would be potentially bypassing environmental and other protection.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, going back to address the budget for the CEO KPI delivery, I just remind everybody that we made a decision not to dive into retained earnings, and that they are quite precious. So I don't want to see us diving into retained earnings. We also have a CEO that's performing really, really well, and she has had some pressure with staff lately. So I myself would prefer to defer the KPI to the next financial year, and just bear in mind when we come to assessing our overworked CEO that she's not going to be able to meet that one with no budget. So I'm definitely against taking money out of the retained earnings, and I'm definitely into deferring the KPI until we have the funding in place for it.
Just to clarify, John, the whole amount?
I'm talking about the whole amount. I don't want to do what Aileen said, which is 50-50. I don't think that's.
Thank you.
I'd just defer it.
Thank you for that. Terry and then Rekha, please.
Oh, sorry. Quickly, my question really goes back to Sugarloaf, and with that deferring and the going through the court case, and that, has it put pressure on the budget? Do we still feel comfortable around the monies we got through the PGF, that it's still on track?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a roundabout answer to that one. That's right. So it is a limited liability company.
Yeah.
And Councillor Morrissey and I sit there as directors. And in that role, our first, we have to look after the interests of the company. And therefore, we're not really able to publicly talk on behalf of the company. When the company's ready, it will send a letter to Donna. So because I'm sitting there as a director, Donna is effectively the shareholders representative. So if you consider John and I as directors in this discussion, and the information that comes to council will come through from Donna, and that'll come after a letter has been signed off by the board to the shareholders representatives, which is my roundabout way of saying we're not really at liberty to talk about what the goings on the board.
The time frame for that? Months, years?
I'm not sure, I'm sorry. We can ask them to do. They did send a letter some months ago, which I think you received in public excluded. Yeah.
Rekha?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your comments, John. I was actually going to support Aileen in her request. Sorry, this is the budget for the KPI delivery, and I thought split over the two was a good idea. So happy to have that wider discussion and see how others feel. But I also had a question, and this relates to the solid waste RFS types that we've seen between November and January. In delivery for food scrap and glass crates, I see there's sort of even numbers between those two. Is that because they were initially not delivered, or are we seeing a lot of damage to some of our crates and bins and things like that?
Probably need to defer that to Mo, but I'm suspecting that's when our visitor numbers turned up and found they were missing a bin.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would be more the case. Thank you. But yeah, CEO KPI delivery, I don't know what others think.
Sorry, just to confirm Mo's answer, because he didn't have his mic on, it was maybe Mo, if you don't mind, just repeating that so that those online and for the record, we have a record of your response to that, please.
So this refers to the total number of RFS requests, and it refers to glass crates, delivery of glass crates, food scraps, and other queries. The increase in numbers is mainly due to the peak period. We've got a larger number of people in the district, so proportionately it's gone up.
Thank you. Does that help answer your question? Or
so we're not worried about damage, particularly food scraps, bins and things like that?
Damages do occur. Damages to bins do occur. It's quite, I wouldn't say it's unusual, but it does happen and we do replace bins.
Mm.
It can be due to mishandling, people running over them, not placing it properly, and a variety of reasons. That's part of the routine maintenance of delivering that service.
So we're not worried about the quality of those bins?
We have had discussions with waste management about the quality of those bins. I have raised it with their GM, and I don't know if you've noticed the new ones that are coming out, they are of a better quality.
Okay, thank you.
The replacement bins that are coming out.
Wasn't aware of that. So
Thank you.
that's positive news.
Yep, thank you.
Does that help answer your questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right. Anything further? Okay. Okay, so unless there are any further questions in general of Aileen, we will come to the proposed resolution, which is about the out-of-cycle budget request for the CEO KPI, reviewing service delivery and contracting model. There's a couple of things on the table. First of all, there's a suggestion that under item 2A, that be split 50-50 between the current year, so it'll be 50K and an out-of-cycle budget approval for this financial year, which allows the wheels to get turning, or we go 100K in this cycle, or we go item B, which defers the whole thing to the new financial year. So what I might suggest is that we take item A, we delete the 100K and we make that 50-50 this year and next year, and get a vote on item A with the 50-50 split. And if that is not supported by councillors, then we go to item B, which defers it to the new LTP in the new financial year.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Len, to have that tested.
Start with item A.
But,
Sorry.
can we just, and this 50K is going to come out of retained earnings, Len?
It would, yes.
Okay, I'll just take this opportunity just to remind you guys, remember, we said no hands in the cookie jar at all, forever. We just don't want to touch that money, and that's all I'll say, all right?
Thank you.
So, Len, just in terms of procedure, I had my microphone on because I wanted to actually move that B in our report. So am I allowed to do that since you haven't officially moved that? Am I allowed, can I please move?
I apologise most sincerely, and it was clearly written here, but I didn't look at it. So hand smacked. Right, so Councillor Sinclair, what would you like to move, the 50-50 or the 100K as it is in item A?
No.
Sorry?
No, Councillor Sinclair's got a motion.
My hand was up so that I could move the motion that we agree to defer the KPI to the coming financial year.
Okay. You would prefer to do it that way? I'm happy with that.
I would rather test the resolution as it stands.
Okay.
And then go to B if it's supported as A.
Okay.
I would just ask, how do you make a ruling on that?
Through the chair, those are options. So Councillor Sinclair's already moved a motion, which is B.
And so,
okay, then you have to put that motion first.
Okay, which I'm happy to do that. So B is that the council agrees to defer the KPI to the coming financial year with the intention of including the budget in the final LTP decision. Now,
Have we voted to receive the report?
not yet.
I'm happy to move that as part of this one.
I'm happy to second that.
Get that. All those in favour of receiving the report only?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the report is received. Thank you. We've got a motion on the table that we go to B, which agrees to defer into the new LTP. That motion is on the table. We've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour of B, defer to the new LTP? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'll defer it. We're not that far away from it, so that's carried. Yep. 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 Happy to do that. And we're not that far away. And part of the reasoning is that takes a little bit of pressure off our chief executive and gives a bit more time to get those mechanisms in place so that the job can be done properly with adequate budget. Thank you. Okay. What's next? Okay. Item 3.2, Mayoral Report. I'm going to take this as read. Any questions, any discussion on item 3.2, Mayoral Report? I will move that it be received. Can I get a seconder for that? Rebecca, thank you. Any questions, discussion? All right, all those, sorry, Terry?
Lean, is there anything in the report that that would be highlighted that may be a meeting they've done or something like that is of significance that we should know? I'm just thinking about
all of it.
All of it?
It's very exciting stuff. It's been a busy, and this goes all the way back to the 27th of November. It's been a really, really busy time. I think as far as the detail of this is concerned, these are things that I've already had discussions with most of the councillors and people in the community and the team and the staff level. There's some really positive things happening out there. We're getting some, and I'll give you an example, Tairua Residents and Ratepayers meeting on Sunday. Very, very positive feedback from the community about the work that council is doing and has been doing. It's worth passing that on. The Tairua meeting took me by surprise because they gave me, on behalf of council, a card which everyone in the room had signed, thanking us for the work that we'd done to support their community and in supporting the bridge rebuild. And I wasn't expecting that, and it was very much appreciated. So there's some good stuff going on out there. There's some real challenges that we've got ahead of us, but also lots of positive.
One, I just quickly, if I can, is the meeting with Richmond Villas, is there a housing opportunity there? Is there?
I had a very informal meeting with the chief executive of Richmond Villas, and it was a couple of months ago, so I'm going to excuse myself that I can't remember his name. Yes, it was. And that was interesting because he's got some plans to do another couple of buildings, which would provide much needed retirement accommodation for Thames. There are some challenges and some consenting issues that he's working through with the team at the moment, and it's not my place to get into the detail of that. But there's some positive initiatives, but some hurdles along the way. And certainly in terms of housing, and we all know the challenges there, we certainly need that. Okay, thank you. All right, so we've got a motion on the table. Who seconded that? Rebecca? All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. I'll now move that we go to public excluded. Rebecca, seconder, please. Seconder. You're the mover. Delhi, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll wait until we've got all our systems lined up, and then we'll move to public exclusion.